Welcome to the deep dive. If
Mhm.
you've ever, been playing around in Fortnite Creative and thought, man, I wish I could make something specific happen. Like if a player does this, then that happens. Well, you're definitely in the right place today.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to be taking our first steps really into Verse. That's the scripting language built for Unreal Editor for Fortnite, or UFN as you'll hear it called.
Think of it like unlocking a whole new layer for your creations. Creative mode is amazing, right,
Yeah.
for building things. But Verse lets you define the actual rules, the logic, in a much deeper way.
Right. And we've looked at a bunch of guides, tutorials, all aimed at folks who are maybe totally new to coding.
Yeah, the idea is really just to show you a clear path to getting started with Verse. In UEFN, we want to, demystify it a bit, show it's not quite as scary as it might seem at first glance.
Exactly. It's about adding sophistication, adding these unique mechanics without having to ditch everything you already know about building in Fortnite. It complements creative.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace it, it enhances it.
Okay, so for someone staring at UAFN, maybe for the first time, with this goal in mind, where do they even begin? Like the absolute first step.
Well, first step is just launching UEFN itself, right? Open the editor, you can start a totally new project or, open one you've already been working on.
Okay.
And actually, for total beginners, a really good tip is to check out the feature examples that come with UEFN. There's one called Verse Device Starter, which is perfect.
Oh, right. Those little demo projects.
Exactly. And that starter one, it actually includes a very simple Hello World verse script already set up. So you can immediately see something working, which is, encouraging.
That is helpful. Okay, so say we have a project open, maybe that starter one, maybe a blank one. How do we get our own verse script file into it?
Right. So you'll need to find the Verse Explorer. It's usually a window, maybe docked somewhere on the side in the editor layout.
Okay, Verse Explorer.
Once you've got that open, you'll see your project's name in there. You just need to right-click on the project name itself.
Right-click the project.
Yep. And a menu pops up. You're looking for something like Add New Verse File to Project. Click that.
Gotcha.
It'll probably then ask you to choose a template. And for the kind of interactive gameplay stuff we're talking about, the Verse device template is almost always the one you want.
Verse device. Okay, keeping that name in mind. Now, I've heard these templates, sometimes they already have some code in them, like a little head start.
They often do, yeah.
Yeah.
When you make that new Verse device file, don't be surprised if you see a line already there, something like print, hello world.
Ah, the classic.
The classic first program, exactly. It's usually inside a special section called on begin. Now, to actually see this code and, change it, you need to open the file.
How do we do that?
Usually just double-clicking the Verse file name in that Verse Explorer window does the trick. It'll likely open up in an external program, a code editor.
Like Visual Studio Code,
But
VS Code?
VS Code is a really popular one, yeah. It's free, works great with UEFN. Lots of people use it.
Okay, so we double-click, it opens in VS Code, we see print. Hello, world. Now,
Yeah.
how does that code, sitting in that separate editor, actually connect to our game world in Fortnite?
Ah, that's a super important step. Just having the file isn't quite enough. The code needs like an anchor in your level.
An anchor.
Yeah, so the Verse device that this script file represents, you actually need to find it in your content browser, where all your 3D models and textures live.
Right, the asset library.
Exactly. Find your Verse device in there, and you have to physically drag it and drop it into your actual game level, just like you'd place a prop or a building piece.
Oh, I see. So you drag the device into the world, and that device uses the script we wrote.
Precisely. That action, dragging it into the level, that's what tells you EFN. Okay, this code exists, it's active, compile it, and get it ready to run when the game starts.
That makes a lot more sense, especially for a visual editor like UEFN. Okay, so let's say someone's looking at that print hello world code for the very, very first time. What are the absolute, like, rock bottom basic concepts in Verse they should try to grasp?
Okay, let's break down a few key things you'll see. First, classes. The template we use, the Verse device, it's based on a class called Creative Device. Think of a class like a blueprint.
A blueprint for an object.
Exactly, a blueprint for creating interactive things in your game. When you drag the device into the level, you are creating a specific instance of that blueprint.
Okay, classes are blueprints. What else?
Then you have functions. Remember that on begin section where the hello world was?
Yeah.
On begin is a function. It's basically a named block of code instructions. And on begin is special because the game automatically runs the code inside at once, right when that device starts up in the level.
So functions are blocks of code that do stuff. On begin runs at the start. Got it.
And the third big one is variables. Variables are just like like little labeled boxes or containers where you can store pieces of information that might change.
Like a player's score. Or maybe if a light is on or off.
Perfect examples, yeah.
Yeah.
Score, health, ammo, whether a door is locked, anything you need to keep track of.
Okay, so classes are blueprints, functions are action blocks, variables are info containers. That helps frame it. What about the actual, typing, the syntax? Are there little symbols or keywords we should recognize immediately?
Definitely. You'll see lines starting with a hash symbol, hashtag.
Like a hashtag?
Sort of, yeah. In verse, that hashtag means it's a comment. Anything after the hashtag on that line is completely ignored by the computer. It's just for humans, notes for yourself, or explanations for others reading your code.
Ah, okay. So hashtag is for notes. Good to know.
Then you'll often see lines starting with using. These are import statements.
Using what?
Using pre-built libraries or toolkits, basically. For example, you'll almost always see something like using Fortnite.com for game simulation. That's telling verse, hey, I need access to the standard Fortnite game rules and physics stuff.
So using brings in extra tools we might need.
Exactly. You might also see one for, say, random, if you wanted to generate random numbers for your game. It's how you access functionality that isn't built into the absolute core language.
Okay, hashtag for notes, using for tools. What else stands out?
You might see constants being set up.
Yeah.
These are like variables, but their value is fixed. It doesn't change once you set it. They often use a different kind of equal sign, colon equals, ig. And then, of course, the print function we already mentioned. Print is, well, it's going to be your absolute best friend when you're starting out.
Why's that?
Because it lets you send messages to the in-game log. It's how you can see what your code is actually doing behind the scenes, check values, see if things are running.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
The in-game log. All right, you mentioned that. So print just shows text, like, hello world, purring. Can it show us, like, the value of one of those variable boxes?
Absolutely. That's where it gets really useful. Verse has something called string interpolation. Sounds fancy, but it just means you can embed stuff directly inside your print message text. You use curly brackets. So if you have a variable called player score, you could write print. Current score is player score.
Oh, and it would print the actual number.
Exactly. It replaces player score with whatever value is currently stored in that variable. You can even do math in there, like print result. 2 plus 2, it'll print result 4.
Whoa, okay, that's cool. Putting variables right in the message.
Yeah, it's super handy.
Yeah.
And one more quick tip for print. You can also use what are called named arguments. For instance, if you want your message to stay visible on the screen for, say, 10 seconds instead of the default short time, you can add day duration, 10 point over, inside the parentheses.
Ah, print, you win. Dear duration, 10.0, like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. Controls how long it stays.
Nice. Okay, so we've written some code, maybe using print with variables. We dragged our verse device into the level. How do we actually run it and see those messages in the log? What's the workflow?
Right, the workflow. It involves a few steps because UEFN connects to a live Fortnite server to test your game. It's a client server thing.
Okay.
So step 1. After you make changes in VS Code, you must save the file. Control S, file save, whatever works.
Save first. Got it.
Then switch back over to the UEFN editor window. Go up to the verse menu at the top.
Verse menu.
And in there, you'll find an option called Build Verse Code. Click that. UEFN will check your script for any obvious errors, like typos. If it's happy, you should see a little green check mark pop up somewhere.
Green check mark means good to go.
Pretty much. It means the code compiled successfully. The next step, still in UEFN, is to find the button or menu option for push verse changes. Sometimes it looks like a little circular arrow icon.
Push changes. Okay, what does that do?
That takes your newly built code and sends it over to that live Fortnite server session that UEFN is connected to. It updates the server with your latest script.
Ah, so save, build, push.
You got it.
Yeah.
And after you've pushed the changes, you can then launch or start your game session from within UEFN. Usually there's a big green launch session button.
And then jump into the game. Where's that log again?
Once you're running around your game session, you typically hit the escape key. That should bring up a menu. Look for something like Island Settings, and within that there should be a log tab. Click that, and voila. You should see any messages your statements generated.
Escape-islandsettings.log. Okay.
And just a heads up,
Yeah.
sometimes, especially if you made big changes, the log might not update immediately, or things might seem weird. If that happens, just stopping the current game session in UEFN and then starting it again usually fixes it. A fresh start.
Good tip. Sometimes you just need to restart it. Okay, so that's the cycle. Save, build, push, launch, check log. Seems manageable. Now, Inevitably, things will go wrong.
Aha, yes. Welcome to programming.
Right. So for us beginners, when our cool idea just doesn't work or the game crashes, how do we figure out why? How do we debug in verse?
That's a great question. And honestly, for UEFN right now, your primary debugging tool is the print statement.
Really? Just print.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
More advanced tools like breakpoints where you can pause the code execution step by step, they aren't really fully available for general users in UEFN just yet. So print becomes absolutely essential.
So how do we use print to find problems?
You use it strategically. Like you sprinkle print
Hmm.
statements throughout your code at key points. Put one right before a piece of logic you suspect might be failing. Put another one right after it.
Like, okay, starting calculation, then calculation finished, result is result variable.
Exactly. Or even just reached point A and reached point B. This helps you trace the flow. Did the code even get to the part you thought it did? Is that function you wrote actually being called? What's the value of this variable right before the crash happens? Print helps you answer all those questions.
So it's like leaving yourself little notes in the log to follow the code's path, like digital breadcrumbs.
That's a perfect analogy. Digital breadcrumbs. You use them to see where the code went off the trail. It might feel a bit basic compared to fancy debuggers, but honestly, learning to debug effectively with print is a fundamental skill.
Makes sense. You learn to think logically about where the problem could be and then use print to test your theories.
Precisely. Now, Epic has talked about adding more advanced debugging features in the future. Things like log points, maybe stepwise debugging eventually. But for today, for a beginner getting started, master the print statement. It's your #1 tool for understanding what your code is doing, especially when it's not doing what you expect.
Okay, practical advice. Stick with print for now. Looking a bit bigger picture now. We're learning verse for UEFN for Fortnite. But where does verse fit in the grand scheme of Unreal Engine? Is this just a Fortnite thing?
That's a really important point. Verse is definitely not just a Fortnite thing, not in the long run. Epic Games seems to be positioning Verse as a major part of the future of Unreal Engine itself.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, from what we've gathered from Epic's communications and technical talks, the plan seems to be to integrate Verse deeply into Unreal Engine 6. It's expected to sit alongside blueprints, the visual scripting system, and the traditional C++ programming as like a third core way to build game logic.
Wow. Okay, so alongside blueprints and C++R, that's
It
significant.
really is. It shows a huge investment from Epic. They see Verse as fundamental, not just for the Fortnite ecosystem, which is already massive, but potentially for all sorts of game development and interactive experiences built with Unreal Engine going forward.
So the skills we learn messing around with Verse in UAFN could actually be valuable for broader Unreal Engine development later on.
Very likely, yes. It's designed to be powerful, flexible, especially good for network games and complex interactions, which fits well with Epic's vision for things like the metaverse. It complements the existing tools, offering another approach for creators.
That's really interesting. Good to know it has legs beyond just Fortnite custom games. Okay, well, this has been super insightful, especially for anyone just dipping their toes into Verse. Let's try and recap the main points for a beginner.
Sounds good.
So first off, Verse is this powerful scripting language for UEFN. It lets you add custom rules and logic way beyond standard creative mode. It looks maybe a bit intimidating, but it's approachable.
Right. And getting started involves launching UEFN, using the Verse Explorer to add a Verse device file to your project, and making sure you drag that device into your actual game level. That's key.
Then you'll open the code, probably in VS Code, and you'll encounter basics like classes, blueprints, functions, action blocks like onBegin, and variables, info storage.
And remember those syntax bits. Hashtag for comments, using to import toolsets, jar for constants, and especially the print function.
Yeah, print is crucial. Use it with curly braces to see variable values, and check the output in the in-game log. Escape by island settings a log.
And that whole workflow. Save your code, switch to UEFN, build Verse code, push Verse changes, then launch the session to test.
And finally, when things go wrong, which they will,
Yep.
use print strategically as your main debugging tool for now. Leave those digital breadcrumbs to figure out what's happening.
That covers the essentials beautifully, I think.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who's feeling, even slightly curious,
Yeah.
just try it. Seriously. Launch UEFN, make that Verse device find the hello world print statement.
Yeah.
It's such a small first step, but it could really open the door.
Definitely. And don't be afraid to tinker. Change hello world to something else. Add a hashtag comment explaining what the line does. Just get comfortable clipping around.
Exactly. And if you hit a wall or want to learn more, the official verse documentation on the Epic Developer Community website is actually really good, and the forums there are full of helpful people.
Great resources. So maybe a final thought to leave people with, especially those new coders out there. Think about it.
Yeah.
This scripting power, it lets you take the Fortnite world you already know and build truly unique experiences inside it. What game have you always wished existed in Fortnite?
Yeah, what are those "if only I could make it do this" moments you've had? Verse might just be the tool that lets you finally build that thing. It's a really exciting creative possibility.
Couldn't agree more. It unlocks a whole new dimension.
One line of code at a time.